There is no band that sounds quite like the Cocteau Twins. Though many bands have tried to recapture the sound of the group, Cocteau Twins is the coalescence of three innovative musicians who were able to create a new ethereal sound. As a matter of fact, nearly every band I've talked about on this channel have cited Cocteau Twins as an influence, so their impact cannot be overstated. So today I'll be telling the story of Cocteau Twins and their transition from being an inspired post-punk group to pioneers of dream pop. Cocteau Twins had its genesis in Grangemouth, a seaport and industrial town of roughly 15,000 located in Scotland. Robin Guthrie and his pal Will Heggie would form Cocteau Twins in 1979. Not exactly known for its social scene, Robin would refer to Grangemouth affectionately as a toilet. There was, however, a local disco called the Hotel International where Robin would DJ on punk nights. Elizabeth Fraser would attend one of these punk nights in 1981 and would eventually become the lead vocalist of the group. Before any music was released, Liz would leave the group for 6 months but would rejoin after she became romantically involved with Robin. Sharing a love for post-punk and gothic rock, Australian group The Birthday Party served as a major influence for the bandmates. Some other groups that influenced them included Susie and the Banshees, Sex Pistols, and Kate Bush. They were drawn to the newly formed 4AD, a record label that had recruited The Birthday Party to their brand. One night while attending a birthday party show, Robin went backstage, dragging a reluctant Will and Liz along. They would encounter the drummer of the group, Phil Calvert, who was very friendly and helpful, giving them the address to 4AD. From there, Cocteau Twins began sending tapes to the record label. Their debut album was released in July of 1982 and was called Garlands. It was a humble beginning for the group, with their quintessential dream pop sound being noticeably absent. What can be heard instead is more in the vein of gothic rock and post-punk groups like Bauhaus and Modern English. Darker and more sinister than future releases, there's a drum machine which serves as kind of a backbone to screeching, reverberated guitars. The bass work done by Will is top-notch, sounding rhythmic and eerie. Liz, who was 19 when Garlands was recorded, uses actual lyrics. Her youthful voice howls over the textured soundscape. Despite the fact that Cocteau Twins had not yet established their signature sound, I think Garlands is an excellent first release for the group, especially when considering the young ages of the bandmates and the hasty recording sessions. The record reached number 4 on the UK indie album charts and received generally positive reviews from contemporary music critics. A few months later, in October 1982, Cocteau Twins released their first EP entitled Lullabies. Featuring 3 non-album singles, one can already hear a stylistic shift when compared to their debut album. Will's bass playing is quieted down a bit, while Liz's vocal performance sounds stronger and more confident. This trend continues into the group's second EP called Peppermint Pig. Released in April 1983, the EP sounds musically similar to Lullabies. It's notable for featuring the production of Alan Rankin of Associates, which the group was disappointed with upon hearing the results. Robin described the EP as, quote, a bad mixture, bad song, bad producer, bad band. The band would never hire an outside producer for the rest of their time together. Following a tour to promote Peppermint Pig, Will would amicably depart from the group and joined Lowlife. Now just a duo, Robin took over bass duties to record the band's second album called Head Over Heels. Released alongside their third EP, Sunburst and Snowblind, in autumn of 1983, both the LP and EP were major achievements in Cocteau Twins' sound. The gothic sound of the group is still there, but it is enhanced with Robin's lush guitar playing and Liz's increasingly wordless vocals. It's really the first time we get to hear the trademark Cocteau Twins sound. There's just something indescribable of Liz's vocal performance. Through stepping away from distinguishable lyrics, Liz was able to convey emotion in a way which transcends language. It's enigmatic, surreal, and beautiful. Robin's reverberated and textured guitars serve as a precursor to shoegaze music, particularly in the track Sugar Hiccup. Gone is the dark sound of garlands, which is replaced with ethereal gloriousness. Head Over Heels was positively received by critics, and it became the first Cocteau Twins release to break the UK album charts, peaking at number 51. Sunburst and Snowblind was similarly acclaimed and reached number 86 on the UK singles charts. Following the release of Head Over Heels and Sunburst and Snowblind, Cocteau Twins embarked on a European tour to support orchestral maneuvers in the dark. As a duo, Liz and Robin found it difficult to recreate the sounds that they had made in studio and had to cut their tour short. They would go on to participate in a 4AD musical collective project called This Mortal Coil, where they would record their own version of the Tim Buckley song Sound to the Siren, which became one of the most popular Cocteau Twins tracks.
And you sang.
It was during the Mortal Coil sessions where Robin and Liz met Simon Raymond, formerly of the group Drowning Craze. Simon would join the band as bassist soon after. His first appearance would be in the EP The Spangle Maker in April 1984. The EP marked another transitional period for the band as Simon brought additional studio experience and insight. What can be heard is an enhancement in production. It's almost theatrical in the way that texture builds and develops into overwhelming layers of sound. Liz continues to abandon recognizable vocals, focusing on sound and emotion over words. In an interview with Electronics and Movie Maker in 1984, Liz would comment, quote, "I think I'm more interested in the way words sound and what you can do if you say words in different ways than in what the words themselves actually mean. I can't really say which authors or books have influenced me. I can never remember the names, but it's really just certain groups of words and the way they sound." The Spangle Maker also received positive reviews upon its release, and it reached number 29 on the UK singles charts. 1984 was really Cocteau Twins' rise to fame year. They received an invitation to appear on Top of the Pops, but would decline. Cocteau Twins did appear on the Old Grey Whistle test that year. They also recorded their first music video for the track Pearly Dewdrops' Drops from the aforementioned Spangle Maker. Directed by Nigel Grierson from 23 Envelope, the band was disappointed with the end result, disliking how it appeared too promotional. November of '84 would also see the release of Cocteau Twins' third studio album. Despite the group disliking the record, Treasure was acclaimed as one of Cocteau Twins' greatest releases, and I can certainly see why. At this point, one can hear how the band has become masters of production and texture. The dense atmosphere in these songs is so warm and sensual, it really takes me to a beautiful place. I think this is the first album where the group completely steps away from post-punk and gothic rock in favor of an ethereal dream pop sound. The sound palette reaches wide in Treasure, whether it be the electroacoustic beauty in Persephone or the smooth dark wave Otterly. Treasure is frequently listed as one of the 100 greatest albums of the 1980s, with Josh Jackson of Paste magazine praising it as, quote, the first full realization of the band's ethereal pop sound. After another round of radio and TV performances, Cocteau Twins went on an international tour in early 1985. Perhaps their most prolific year yet, Cocteau Twins would release a trilogy of EPs throughout the year. All three of these projects charted in the UK singles charts and were well received. The first was called IKEA Guinea, and it was released in March. A wavy texture can be observed upon listening to this EP. This allusion to the sea and ocean can be observed both sonically and in the names of the songs. Apparently, Cocteau Twins decided to give Nigel Grierson a second chance at directing a music video for the title track of the EP. The bandmates were much happier with this video than they were for Pearly Dewdrops' Drops due to its more personal nature. The next two EPs were called Tiny Dynamite and Echoes in a Shallow Day, and they were released just 2 weeks apart from each other in November of '85. Originally, neither of these records were supposed to be released to the public and served more as an exploration of the production capabilities of a new studio. However, the bandmates were eventually able to polish this material enough to a point where they felt comfortable sharing it with the public. Upon hearing these two EPs, one can hear a shift in sound that is slower and spacier than IKEA Guinea. The songs are more sophisticated than anything Cocteau Twins had previously released, which can be heard in the complex time signatures and atmospheric production. In an attempt to expose themselves to an international audience, Cocteau Twins released the compilation album The Pink Opaque in January 1986. It featured 10 songs recorded between 1982 and 85 from their previous EPs and albums. The Pink Opaque served as an excellent introduction album to Cocteau Twins' materials, and they gained popularity in American college radio as a result. Continuing to move in the direction of ambient pop and ethereal wave, Cocteau Twins released their fourth studio album Victoria Land in April 1986. Absent from the album's recording was Simon, who was busy contributing to the second album for the aforementioned This Mortal Coil. Temporarily a duo again, Robin and Liz created a subtler, more acoustic sound that had minimal bass and percussion. Regarding the recording of Victoria Land, Robin would comment, quote, "Me and Liz decided we were just going to do some tracks with just acoustics and voice as our limitations. Despite being more acoustic than previous releases, the songwriting isn't simpler. On the contrary, Liz's vocals are beautifully manipulated and it sounds impressionistic. Robin's guitar work is delicate but masterfully layered. One can also hear Richard Thomas of Diff Jews playing both saxophone and tabla, which is a type of drum that originates from India. The album was praised for its beauty, and it was their highest charting one yet, reaching number 10 on the UK album charts. Cocteau Twins would also see the release of the collaborative album The Moon and the Melodies the same year as Victoria Land. A project done with American minimalist composer Harold Budd, the group went to great lengths for The Moon and the Melodies to not be considered a Cocteau Twins album. Consequently, issues of the album listed as a Harold Budd project featuring Elizabeth Fraser, Robin Guthrie, and Simon Raymond. The album is a bit noisier than Victoria Land, which is likely due to the return of Simon and Harold's ambient contributions. The end product of this collaboration proved to be a creative and unique one. Despite the fact that half of the songs are instrumentals, Liz's soaring vocals pair beautifully with the blissful noises of Harold. The soundscapes on this record are gorgeous and occasionally even catchy, making the record the greatest non-Cocteau Twins album there ever was. 1986 would also see the release of another EP, which would be the group's last EP for 7 years. Called Love's Easy Tears, the EP is a colorful exploration of thick textures that sound a bit reminiscent of 1960s Wall of Sound. The Cocteau Twins have cited the Ronettes and Beach Boys as influences, and their impact can be heard in this record. This isn't to say that Love's Easy Tears is a derivative record, as it takes this 60s sound and redefines it through Robin's chiming guitars, Simon's dancing bass, and of course, Liz's angelic vocals. The group decided to record a low-budget music video for the title track off the EP. After several incredibly productive years, Cocteau Twins kind of disappeared throughout 1987, taking a much-deserved break from recording music. While they did contribute one song to the 4AD compilation album Lonely as an Eyesore called Crush, there were no albums or EPs released that year. It wasn't until September 1988 when Cocteau Twins would return to release their fifth studio album. Entitled Blue Bell Knoll, the record seemed to enable the band to further experiment with sound. Now signed to the international record label Capitol Records, the band had set up their own studio and was able to record music on their own terms. Despite some allegations that the group had sold out upon joining the label, Simon would reassure fans that, quote, "Whatever money we've made over the past few years, we've just put straight back into what we're doing." This is evident upon hearing Blue Bell Knoll, as each track has its own sonic experience. Experimenting with marimbas, xylophones, harpsichords, and various percussion instruments, the feelings created in this album are rich and exciting. Despite the fact that Blue Bell Knoll was Cocteau Twins' first major label recording, they did little promotion for the album. Though 2 music videos for the album were filmed, the group simply did not feel like touring at the time. The album was another commercial and critical success for the group, reaching number 15 on the UK album charts. The bandmates would return back to their private lives after the release of Blue Bell Knoll. Liz and Robin would welcome their daughter Lucy into the world in September of 1989, while Simon would get married and have a son named Stanley. Robin had also built quite a name for himself in the world of production and would work with upcoming shoegaze groups like Lush and Chapter House. However, not everything was peachy in the personal lives of the Cocteau Twins trio. Robin was becoming increasingly dependent on cocaine and was experiencing mood swings and paranoia as a result. His addiction strained his relationship with Liz. Simon would also be devastated by the loss of his father, who he would credit as a major influence on his life. Despite tumultuous personal lives, Cocteau Twins would release their 6th studio album, Heaven or Las Vegas, in September of 1990. By most accounts, Heaven or Las Vegas is Cocteau Twins' most successful album, both commercially and critically. It seems to convey universal themes like birth, love, and death. One can really hear in songs like Ice Blank Luck the embodiment of exhilaration and joy brought by Liz's newfound love of motherhood. On the other end, there are also darker tracks like Frou Frou Foxes and Midsummer Fires, which was written just one day after Simon's dad passed away. I think in Heaven or Las Vegas, Cocteau Twins achieves the perfect balance between accessibility for more casual listeners while still experimenting with sound. Liz's vocals are slightly more comprehensible than in previous releases, and tracks follow a more cohesive pop structure. Guitar hooks are brighter, and rhythms sound inspired by hip-hop beats. Robin made extensive use of studio technologies. Simon also played a larger role in the recording process due to Robin's increased absence working with other groups. Heaven or Las Vegas would peak at number 7 on the UK album charts and number 99 on the US album charts. Cocteau Twins embarked on their most extensive tour yet, and their first in nearly 4 years. Headlining in the United States, they would perform with Mazzy Star and then later The Veldt in the nation. The group brought along with them 2 guitarists named Mitsuo Tate and Ben Blakeman to aid in recreating the layered sound in their music. With the tour appropriately ending in Las Vegas, the Cocteau Twins would once again disappear after the tour was over. It really was the best of times and the worst of times for the group. Despite 4AD president Ivo Watts Russell declaring that Heaven or Las Vegas was one of the greatest projects released under his label, he would release the group from their contract to 4AD Records in late 1990 after their relationship had gone downhill. Besides a 1992 recording of Frosty the Snowman for the magazine Volume, 3 years would pass before the world would hear any new Cocteau Twins material. Upon returning back to the UK, the group would sign to Mercury's Fontana label. Robin would go to rehab during this time, but he was still under the influence during the recording of a follow-up album entitled 4 Calendar Cafe. There is much more of a lucid and minimalistic sound to 4 Calendar Cafe, and Liz's vocals are even more intelligible than in Heaven or Las Vegas. Released in October 1993, the album was the first to be released after Robin and Liz had separated. Robin took a step back from multi-layered song recording and was quoted as saying, "I've consciously been stripping things back. In the past, I've always wanted one more overdub. One more melody, because I'm terrible for thinking that my music isn't good enough, so if I put in a few more frilly overdubs, then it'll be alright." Some tracks like Summerhead sound like a song from Heaven or Las Vegas with more intelligible lyrics, while Evangeline has a much more relaxed and jangly sound. While some fans were disappointed with the minimalistic tendencies of 4 Calendar Cafe, the album was warmly received by critics, and it would peak at number 13 on the UK album charts and number 78 on the US album charts. Cocteau Twins would top off '93 with a fall tour and the release of the limited edition Christmas EP, which features the covers Winter Wonderland and Frosty the Snowman. Just as a bit of a personal opinion, I typically don't have much of an interest in hearing covers of traditional Christmas songs by popular musicians, but I really did enjoy listening to these two tracks. I think the ethereal sounds of Cocteau Twins pairs really well with the feelings of winter and Christmas festivities. 1994 began with Cocteau Twins' first appearances on US television, including The Tonight Show with Jay Leno and a rather awkward or perhaps even hostile interview with Robin on MTV's 120 Minutes. Despite being introduced to a new audience of viewers, it was becoming increasingly evident that Cocteau Twins was nearing its final days as a group. Liz experienced a nervous breakdown after the tour, and Simon was growing tired of the fighting between her and Robin. Another sign of the group's impending disbandment was the number of side projects that each member was partaking in. By 1995, there was a renewed sense of optimism for Cocteau Twins, and the trio was ready to venture back into the recording studio. Revisiting their love for releasing EPs, Cocteau Twins would release a duo of them in the fall of that year. They would be the final two EPs that Cocteau Twins would ever release. Though they were only released a month away from each other, the two EPs couldn't be any more different. The first one was called Twin Lights, which contained 4 acoustic songs that sound like beautiful chamber pop lullabies. For listeners craving a more electronic sound, Otherness would be released soon after, which would experiment with techno and ambient music. The latter was produced by Mark Clifford of Seafeel. The duo of EPs featured remixed versions of previous Cocteau Twins songs and new material that would appear on their final studio album, Milk and Kisses. Before the release of the album, Cocteau Twins would do a few one-off recordings, one for a critically panned movie called Judge Dredd, and another for the aforementioned UK magazine volume. Strangely enough, they would also compose the music for a Coca-Cola commercial advertising its fruit juice product called Fruitopia. Milk and Kisses was released in March 1996 to mixed reviews. While some fans called it a renewal of creativity they hadn't had since the early 1980s, others criticized it for not really breaking new ground for the band. Liz returns back to her unintelligible lyrics, some of which were English sung backwards. In tracks like Violin, one can hear Cocteau Twins exploring rock and roll to some extent, with its distorted guitars and funky bass. Other tracks like Tishbite are much more sensual and upbeat. The final track on the album is Seekers Who Are Lovers, and it has a hazy and melancholic vibe to it. The album would reach number 17 on the UK album charts and number 99 on the US album charts. Though they didn't realize it at the time, Cocteau Twins embarked on one final tour. By most accounts, this was their most ambitious tour yet. Liz, who occasionally suffered from stage fright, stunned audiences with her vocals. Cocteau Twins also performed songs from their previous albums. After returning home, they were released from Mercury Records, and rumors were beginning to develop that the band had split. They denied the rumors at the time and would even establish their own independent record label called Bella Union. While a number of songs were partially recorded or maybe even completed in the studio, Cocteau Twins would split in 1997 before they could release a 9th album. Their split was at least in part due to irreconcilable differences between Robin and Liz. Bella Union would release a double CD box set compilation of Cocteau Twins' recordings in 1999, which was a complete collection of appearances on UK radio programs. All 3 of the Cocteau Twins have remained musically active since the splitting of the band. Simon would release a solo album called Blame Someone Else and would produce for several Domino Records artists. Robin would release 5 albums and 5 EPs and would also write the scores for several movies. Liz would provide vocals for 3 songs on Massive Attack's groundbreaking album Mezzanine, including Teardrop, which I believe is one of the greatest songs of the 1990s. She would also offer her vocals for a song in the first Lord of the Rings movie. It would be disingenuous to suggest that Cocteau twins have any chance of reuniting. Simon has stated as recently as 2021 that the group will never reform. However, there is still reason for fans of Cocteau twins to feel excited for the future. For instance, Liz has an EP called Sun Signature that is set to be released in June of this year. Though it has been 25 years since Cocteau Twins disbanded, contemporary acts such as M83, Beach House, Aka, and even The Weeknd have all cited them as an influence on their music. They truly were a phenomena, a group that has stood the test of time and has influenced a new generation of musicians. It is my passion to tell the stories of the most innovative musicians of our time. My dream is to one day be able to make YouTube videos full-time so that I can upload longer content on a weekly basis. With my channel recently becoming monetized, this goal is becoming more likely than ever before. If you would like to support this channel, please be sure to like this video and subscribe as well. Thank you for watching the video.